welcome to our first part of the webinar series, Strategic Freight Management in SAP Transportation Management. My name is Nicholas.runge, and I will guide you together with my colleague Angelique Marie through the next 60 minutes. So before we talk about strategic freight management in detail, I would like to take this opportunity to really briefly introduce who we are, who is Westernacher, and what we are doing. Next slide, please. So really keep it short. Westernacher was founded in '69 in Heidelberg in Germany and is now present with over 650 active consultants worldwide. So actually we are 3 years older than SAP. We are an SAP Gold partner implementing exclusively SAP software. In addition to our main locations, Heidelberg, Germany, we have subsidiaries in Boston, the USA, in Phoenix in the USA, and numerous branches in India, China, and South America. So we have a global presence to run our global projects, helping the customers. Next slide, please. As you see right here, as a boutique consultancy, I mentioned that we are specialized in the entire supply chain and execution platform. However, over the years, we also expanded our spectrum in planning and analytics, sales, ECC, for example. Our specialized team is working in the supply chain now. I do not want to go into detail about the key facts, as you will get the slides completely available after the series, but some key figures about our expertises and our implemented projects. Next slide, please. Following then the introduction to strategic freight management in general, my colleague Angelique will show and tell the whole process and document flow using a live system today. So we prepared a couple of functionalities we want to show you. Let's start or give you guys a quick overview about strategic freight management. So as part of strategic freight management, we basically talk about two main components. On the one hand side, the strategic freight procurement, and on the other hand side, the strategic freight selling. In our first episode, we will focus today on the strategic purchasing process. So basically, from today's point of view of a shipper or LSP, we act for its freight purchase rates as simple and integrated, using our TM and of course the functionality given for the entire process. So from the request for a freight rate to the goal of concluding with the contract with the carrier. Next week, we will look at the selling side, introducing some tools created by Westernacher, helping your quote based on the selling process made beforehand. We do not want to go into detail at this point today, but let's keep it short. However, it should be mentioned that we will act here from the point of view of the carrier or LSP, so the complete other side, with the aim of being able to offer the best sales rates to the customers based on the insights gained from our purchasing process we've learned today. So this should then, equivalent to the procurement side of today, end up with a customer agreement. So we are talking about freight agreements on the procurement side and forwarding or customer agreements on the other side. Next slide, please. Next, please. So I tried to sum up 5 challenges we have learned from our customers in the last years when we implemented SFM or SFP. By the way, it should be mentioned right here that you don't have to implement both sides for a project. You can just implement the procurement side depending on which role you are. But before we talk in detail about the functionalities in the system, I would like to share with you the 5 most important strategic freight purchasing challenges we've learned. So going from 5 to 1. In addition to the question of how the operational process for purchasing managers can be harmonized and simplified, and of course, how much time should ultimately be invested in the purchasing negotiation from the perspective of a procurement manager, a large number of our customers primarily attach importance to being able to analyze the growing number of their data. So we're talking about customer or carrier performances. We talk about negotiated cycles and all these numbers of growing data in a targeted manner. They would be able, or they want to be able to make better decisions. These results in the best case in savings in the freight purchasing area, but Not to neglect demand purchasing managers of a system as integrated and easy communication with the parties involved. We will see that later when Angelique is publishing the quotation process. I will show you how we at Westernacher currently use the collaboration portal and an enhanced version of the collaboration portal to establish this communication process. In the purchasing area, so therefore, the entire process from bidding to possible freight agreement should be fully supported by our system, which we will see in our TM live demo. So based on the challenges right now, I would like to introduce you some of the really solution highlights from that SAP Strategic Freight Procurement. So in general, we have one system with an open interface for all related processes without any modification before. I heard a lot of questions in the past. So can we integrate somehow rate providers like Web Cargo for air freight into that process? Yes, that's possible. So we can pull the rates based on an integration. We can pull the rates into the charge calculation and use that rates coming from our third-party rate provider within the process. Then we have insights to action based on process flow, so historical data, RFQ prep, spend analysis and awarding possible in our procurement process. It's pretty simple to modeling complex scenarios and packages. For me personally, my most powerful highlight here is simulations. Yeah, you can simulate freight spend, what if analysis, and then based on the results you get it there, you can make a decision how to go on with the carrier and with the negotiation process. And yeah, last but not least, efficient information exchange with carriers and LSPs. Yeah, next slide, please. To open up the business case for Angelique. So we have Angelique as a transportation manager at Westernacher Shipper in Europe, and we have myself as the responsible manager for a logistics service provider or carrier that Angelique seeks to sign a long-term contract with. So we want to ship Westernacher products regularly to various dealers' locations, to customers. Therefore, Angelique needs to send out a global tender to a number of carriers for transportation requirements to find the most suitable LSP or carrier. And in the next upcoming minutes, Angelique is gonna show you how the system works, how the process looks like. And I will try to, if you have questions, I will try to moderate this and raise these questions whenever possible. Thank you. So I hand over to my colleague Angelique.
Thank you, Nicholas. Hi all, myself Angelique. I will explain the SFP process today, followed by a system demo. So as a first step, so this is the overall picture of the whole SFP process. So in this overall process, we can break it to different stages, like we break it down to preparation and creation of an RFQ master, and then we publish. The next stage would be publishing the RFQ master, and the next stage would be analyzing the responses from the carriers, and the next stage would be the contract creation. So when we break down into different stages, the first stage being the preparation and creation of the RFQ master. So when we say preparation, what goes into the preparation is the first part, which is the BW data analysis. So in this analysis, we can do analysis on the BW data, the existing BW data, and then we get insights about all the orders, the capacity, the cost, and all the logistic elements that are there in the system. And then we get an insight about the historical data, and that becomes the preparation process, and all those insights and information goes into the RFQ master. The next process would be the creation of the RFQ master. When I say the creation of the RFQ master, the various logistical requirement goes in to the part of the RFQ master. So When we create the RFQ master, we enter all the required information. And once the RFQ master is published, it is readily available to the carriers who will be invited for this procurement process. So when we publish it, it is available to the carriers via B2B or email or collaboration portal. So when I say email, it is an Excel attachment of the RFQ master that just got created, and then we send it via email to the carriers for them to respond with their rates. And the collaboration portal is a tool where we create based on the roles, and the same Excel attachment of the RFQ master is available in the collaboration portal, and the carriers can download and respond their rates via collaboration portal. So now the first stage is done. The preparation and the creation part is done. Stage 2, which is publishing of the RFQ master, is also done. Next comes the next part, which is the analysis of the responses. So what are these responses that I have received? They are the rates that we have received from the carriers. So I can do various analysis on the rates that I have received from the carriers. So I can compare their responses, and the system also enables me to do a simulate spend on these carriers rate. So when I do a simulate spend, I get an estimate of what could be the spend on these carriers for this procurement process. So that's the stage about the response analysis. As part of the response analysis, there is an optimizer involved, which is a flavor of the VSR optimizer. And I do various analysis and come to a conclusion about the business share that I can award to the carriers. So that's the stage with analysis of the responses. Then the next stage, which is the contract creation. When I say contract creation, the contract creation is basically the agreement that we end up with the carrier. So it could be enhancing an old existing agreement, or we go ahead and create a new agreement. So there are various possibilities again with that contract creation part. And this goes in as a closed loop, because this contract that gets created with carrier is nothing but the freight agreement in the system. So that freight agreement is immediately available in the system that can be consumed in the freight order for immediate charge calculation. So when I say a closed loop here, these freight orders are available in the system, and these freight orders becomes the historical data for the upcoming year's historical analysis. So this is about the whole process overview about the procurement process. Now we can go to the system for a system demo. For the demo purpose, I have already created an RFQ master. So I will quickly open that and read through the whole RFQ master. So the structure of the RFQ master is very similar to that of a freight agreement. So we look into the first tab, which is the general data tab, which has the basic details about the RFQ master IDs and description, and then going into the validity. So the first part explains about the RFQ validity, and next part is the agreement validity. So the end process of this procurement process is the agreement creation, which is the freight agreement creation. So we also enter the freight agreement validity for which the contract should be created. And then comes the organization details and the carrier information. So the carrier information here is the carriers to be invited for this procurement process. And there is a incumbent flag, and we can look into this incumbent flag setting in detail when we do the rate comparison. The next part is the item details. When I say the RFQ item details, this is the transportation requirement details. So the validity of the requirement and the various other transportation requirements are recorded in this part, which is the shipping type, the means of transport, the movement type, and every other basic transportation requirements are entered in this RFQ item. So going into a granular level, for this RFQ item, what are the other parameters that we have to enter? It's the carrier detail again, and then the trade lane details. So the trade lane, this is the transportation requirement for which the trade lane that we are planning for the procurement process. And next comes the capacity details. So what is the requested capacity from the shipper side for which the procurement process that we are looking forward. Then comes the other requirement details like the commodity codes and extra notes or attachments that you would like to share it with the carriers. So going into the rating structure, we have the calculation sheet. So when I say the calculation sheet, it's nothing but what are the different costs that will be incurred as part of this procurement process. So in this case, I have entered the loading and unloading cost, the delivery charges, and the basic freight charges. So we can enter many other charges that will be part of this procurement process. In this case, I have entered only 3. If we look into a very granular level, we also have a rate table for the basic freight charges. So to view the basic freight charges based on the source and destination at a very granular level, we can go into the rate table details. And these are the different scales, like these are the parameters that decide my rates. For example, the source location, the destination, the gross weight, and all these details. And then we have the validity of the rates. So this procurement process is again based on the agreement's validity. So the same validity is again pulled in at the rate table level. So as a shipper, I enter all the details like what is my source, my destination, my gross weight, and various other details. And the system also enables me to enter the requested capacity at the very granular level, which is at the location pair level. So I have entered the requested capacity at from each source to destination level, which gives a very granular level of data that I am looking in for the responses from the carriers. So this is the whole process about creating the RFQ master with all the transportation requirements that goes in and detailing it out at different levels. And my RFQ master is ready now. So the system also has enabled with various workflow process to get the approvals before publishing the RFQ master. So the publishing of the RFQ master is just a one click, which is publish RFQ master, and it is published to the carriers and they can view it. So as part of the process now, myself as a transportation manager, the procurement manager from Westernacher, I have created this RFQ master and I have published it and have published my RFQ master. So now Nicholas would take the role of a carrier and we can see how he responds to with the rates.
Exactly. Thank you, Angelique. So I'm Nicholas. I'm purchasing manager at the carrier. Let me make me presenter, showing my screen. I don't want to go into detail today in the collaboration portal. I just want to give you an outlook where we are coming from. So the current collaboration portal you see right now, which is kind of old school, where you have all these information available. This is state of the art right now, what customers are using so far, or our customers are using. I want to give you an outlook how it could look in the future, and from 2020 on. I saw on the attendees list we have some guys from SAP. We have Bill King and Sam Pettis. So if you guys have some information additionally to that about LBN, you are more than welcome to share them with us in the chat section. So depending on the roadmap, or you're going to decide how you want to run your project, you have several options today to implement SFM and the whole communication process. What you see right now is the old collaboration portal, which I mentioned is state of the art, where you have all down here on the left side the freight agreement RFQ sections where you can respond. Yeah, we have not established a connection today, so we don't see that today right here, but you might be familiar with this kind of collaboration portal. So the whole communication process, me as a responsible manager at the carrier, I can respond and negotiate the rates in these freight agreement sections, compared to or similar to the freight tendering process. Whenever you have a freight RFQ, you respond on that. You will get your documents right here available. You answer to that, you reply to that, and this is reflected back then in the TM system where Angelique is working, at Westernacher. So what I'm gonna show you right now, what we have implemented for our customers is in the system, which is a little bit more UX and more nice and feel, is a collaboration portal based on Fiori. So this is almost the same like the old world. We have the functionality, we kept the same. We have our freight orders for execution, in execution, but we fashioned it in a new Fiori way. So as Angelique mentioned, I'm the role carrier. I'm Andrew Adams. This is an example, and I'm responsible for the whole purchasing process, and I can interact with my partner on the other side, in this case Angelique, out of this cockpit. Fashioned and visualized in a better way. With a quick overview, you can quickly accept already freight orders you have right here, or RFQs or quotations. Click into that and get all the details. The UX, the user experience, and the UI is based on that. The last thing I want to point out is LBN. I'm not sure when LBN is getting ready. I think with the next release, the next release on S4, we should have a first really running version where we have first basic functionalities. That's what I've heard in the SAP environment. Of course, you don't have from the beginning on thousands of carriers integrated into that network, but this depending on the roadmap, how you want to implement the projects. You could start either with the really old state-of-the-art collaboration portal. You could use one of our Westernacher assets we have implemented a couple of times for our customers, what you see right here, or then as an outlook to 2020, 2021, going further, using the LBN and connect your whole network to LBN and let SAP hosting this platform. So we assume right now I have responded with using the collaboration portal. I've responded to the RFQ Angelique published, and I'm giving back to Angelique that she can follow up with the response received from my side.
Thanks, Nicholas. So now I have received the responses from the carriers. So when I say I have received the responses, I've also mentioned the RFQ response deadline date within my RFQ master. So I wait till the deadline, and then I ensure I receive all the responses within that deadline, and then I go ahead with my analysis. So before proceeding with my analysis, we can capture all these results in the document flow tab. So the RFQ IDs and who are the carriers and what are the documents that I have published, and the status of the documents also gets updated based on the stage that we are in. So as of now, we are in the stage where the carriers have responded with their rates. So now comes the next process, which is the analysis of the responses. When I say analysis of the responses, it's basically the carriers have responded with their rates, and now it's my time to analyze the rates from these carriers and then select a carrier. So how the system enables me to do this with various options, like I have the cost minimization carrier optimization, and also the rate-based or the historical spend-based optimization that is there in the system, and then I can finalize with the business share with these carriers. So now we can go ahead with the analysis process. So in the system, I have a cockpit where I can do all this analysis. So By clicking this open comparison cockpit, I enter the cockpit to do my analysis with these carrier rates. The first analysis is a simple one, which is a manual analysis of the rates. So in this case, we have two carriers with three different charges, charge types, which is the loading, unloading, the delivery charges, and the basic freight charges. So this one gives me a quick view of all the rates to just to have a quick view of the rates, so that that gives me a picture of a graphical picture of how it looks like, how the carriers have responded. And then even I have the option to look into the carrier rates which are there in the rate table. So in this case, there is a rate table, and then I download it in an Excel format to view all those details that are there, the rates that are there in the rate table form. And the next one is the optimization, which is I have a optimizer that I can run to finalize the business share, and also the option is there to do a simulation of the estimated spend on these carriers, and then I can come up with various strategies to finalize. So the first step to do this optimization analysis is like to create a condition. So when I say a condition, it's basically I create a strategy and I put in these conditions, and these conditions are the inputs to the optimizer. So I can influence the optimizer with various inputs as conditions. So we can quickly view the existing conditions that I have created. So these are the conditions that I enter, and these are the conditions that will be the input to the optimizer for the optimizer to do the analysis and gives me out the business share based on these conditions. So in this case, there are two carriers. For them, I enter what could be the maximum share and the minimum share. So um, so, so these analysis happen based on certain criterias. It could be like, I know this carrier and I have been doing business with this carrier for quite some time, and I know the performance of this carrier is good. So I can have a fixed business share that I would like to allocate to this carrier. So that could be an input at this stage, or there comes the incumbent flag that we saw in the header level. So from the header level, it gets pulled into this condition. So I know that this carrier is new to business, and I would like to sign up a contract, but I also have to ensure that I don't end up giving more business share to this carriers. So such sort of inputs are entered in these conditions, and based on the carrier performance also, we have the bonus malus that gets calculated, and that can go in as an input to the that can go as an input to the optimizer. So this is the place where I enter my condition that goes in as an input. So this is for the rate-based optimization. And once that is done, I can just run run the optimizer, and then the result of the optimizer would be the business share allocation based on my condition. So in this case, for these two carriers, when I say it's Liberty Express and the General Express carriers, so for them I have allocated a business share of 60% and 40%. So when I say 60% and 40% allocation, uh, what is that in numbers based on at the capacity level and at the spend level? So with their rates that they have responded with, I can do an estimate spend. So with their rates that they have responded with that, and the 60% business share as an input, what will be the spend on this carrier? So I can just click this button, and that does a calculation based on their rates, and that gives me an amount that what will be the spend on this carrier if I would give a 60% to Liberty Express. So this is completely on the rate-based optimization, and there is also an option to influence the optimizer with the historical spend based. So so again, going back to the conditions, so there is an option you can completely ignore the rate based, and only your historical spend constraints can be an input. So you can select a charge type to be your prime charge type, and with the existing freight orders, you can enter the new offered rates and do your spend analysis in this case. So that gives a more accurate more accurate of the spend on the carriers. So for the demo purpose, I have created two strategies based on different business share allocations. So in this case, the first strategy is like I give up. I have given 60%, 60% and 40% to these carriers. And what is the spend? The spend would be so much for the first strategy. And going on to the second one, what will be the spend if I give a equal business share, which is going to be 50% to Liberty Express and another 50% to the General Express carriers. So what will be the spend? So to add on, it's not just one trade lane that we are talking in this procurement process. It could be more trade lanes, and this analysis can also be split. We have an option to split the whole analysis and merge back the results. So we can split the analysis at different stage level and give all the split to different users based on their roles. So as a procurement manager, I might have a team who are trade lane experts, and I just split these RFQ items at different trade lane levels, and I can assign to them and they can do their analysis, and then we can merge back all the results to get a holistic view of what will be the spend on these carriers and what will be the right business share allocation that I can do on these carriers so that it's a profitable one for the procurement process. So now I have done all my analysis as a procurement manager, and for me, I feel that this strategy is very good, and this would be a profitable one for my organization. And then I end up selecting this one as my preferred strategy. So when I say a preferred strategy as a procurement manager, for me, this is the preferred strategy based on the analysis that I've done. Like if I give a equal 50% share to these carriers, that would be a profitable one in this case. So I have done all my analysis, but again, it has to go through the different levels of approval. So for this different levels of approval, we have the award summary tab in this case. So the award summary tab, as a procurement manager, I can present it to the higher, the managerial level for the decision making. So I have done all the analysis, but those analysis will be way too detailed for them to come up with a decision. So this gives a holistic view at different levels. So in this case, I can present it to them at the trade lane level, or I can present it to them at the carrier level. So in this case, if we take the carrier level, so these are the two carriers, and what will be the spend on these carriers and what is the capacity that I'm going to allocate to these carriers will be at the carrier level. If I go to the trade lane level, so this is the trade lane and these are the carriers, and this is the business share that I'm planning to allocate to them, and this will end the spend on these carriers if I give this business share, and also it gives a view about what will be the capacity allocation to these carriers if I give them a 50-50% business share. So this award summary basically gives a graphical management summary of capacity and the cost distribution across the carriers and across the trade lanes that are part of this procurement process. So now the decision is made and the required approvals are received that I can go ahead with my preferred strategy. So in this case, the preferred strategy would be the 50% allocations to individual carriers. And then we go ahead with this approval process, and then we go ahead with the contract creation. So when I say the contract creation, it's nothing but the agreement creation. So what are the different possible options that are there for the agreement creation? So in this case, the system, we have covered in all the possible options, like so I know this carrier and I have an existing agreement with this carrier. So I don't want a new agreement with this carrier. I can just have a update the existing agreement with a new version. or I can update the existing carrier with a new item. Or I don't want any update in the agreement level. Everything holds good, and I just want the rateable level of update. So that option is also there in the system. So I think about the various options and select the right way to create the agreement. In this case, I can go ahead and also create a new agreement with this carrier. So for demo purpose, I have already created an agreement with this with one of the carrier, and that information is again recorded in the document flow tab. So in the document flow tab, so this is the agreement that I have created, and there is an hyperlink which is just a one click away, and then the agreement details are there, and it pulls in all the information from the RFQ master. So the validity of the agreement, and there is no manual input here. So all the informations flow in from the RFQ master in this case. The transportation requirements, wherein all the information like the means of transport, the validity, the mode of transport, everything is recorded. And at the capacity level, we have what is the capacity that I will be offering to this carrier if I give him a 50%. So the requested capacity for the whole process was about 12,000 kgs or something like that. So in this case, I am allocating a certain percentage of business share, and this is going to be the gross weight that I'm allocating to this carrier for this validity. And then the charges. So what are the charges that was part of the RFQ master, and what was the rate that was entered by these carriers? So the rates are again pulled in from the RFQ master and even the rate table. So we have the rate table and all the rates that was entered as part of the RFQ master process. The procurement process, everything gets pulled into the freight agreement, and the freight agreement is immediately available to be consumed by a freight order for immediate charge calculation. So with this, we come to an end with the system demo.
This was today's session about strategic freight procurement. So please use the chance to register for the second episode of our series, which is about strategic freight selling. Short outlook for next week. We're gonna show you a rate management tool which helps you in the whole quotation process based on the data gained from today's strategic freight procurement process. Within this tool, you can already use the procurement data, putting a markup on that to provide a selling rate to your customers. And we also explain how the whole negotiation process on the other hand side for the strategic freight selling ending up with the forwarding agreement is looking like. So I hope you enjoyed our webinar. Thank you very much to all participants. Thank you very much to Angelique and our organization team. With this, I would close the session for today. Thank you very much.